If you're new to the channel, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe and leave a comment down below. And also check out our partners, Nerds in the Hood, down in the description. And I hope to see you later on. Peace out. Hey, what's up, y'all, and welcome to another Alternative Factuals video. Check the links in the description, of course, all that good stuff. And I'm going to jump right into it because we have a lot to cover today. Well, it's not really going to be a long video, but I'm going to go over a little breakdown of the first episode of season 2 of Black Lightning. So the episode already starts off pretty hot with the consequences of the first season. They're also mentioning on the news that police brutality is related to the green light and the young kids who are manifesting these powers. And obviously they start questioning, Black Lightning and his family about those gaps in time, mostly Jefferson having to do with the fact that he was disappearing for a certain amount of times and that the board couldn't reach them, and basic stuff where they're targeting him because they need someone who's going to take the blame on the news, so to speak. Now, they did mention some things about psychological review for the students and, having to do with those situations, having to do with Black Lightning and the increased security, or them wanting to increase security. But it wasn't really too relevant in this episode, at least not as of yet. And as we see Lynn being questioned by some sort of government agency, which we later find out is the ASA, the same people who are responsible for putting the green light into the community at first, initially in like the 60s and 70s, but later some of them split off into that rogue little unit which developed these powers for the newer generation of green light babies. Now this one is, like I said, it's relatively self-explanatory, a lot of these, but the manifestation of Jennifer's powers are going pretty badly. But in my personal opinion, I feel like her powers are a manifestation of, like Lynn said, her mental state, where she has a lot of things that she's dealing with mentally, and her powers are outwardly trying to protect her. A little bit like, I don't know if anybody saw that anime Yu Yu Hakusho, but they had very similar things when it came to aura and all that stuff, where your feelings, and even when it came to Hunter x Hunter, your nin and aura are a reflection of how you feel mentally in certain conditions that you are kind of setting mentally for yourself, which can manifest physically through any kind of aura or abilities. Because remember, this is genetic, and even emotions do affect you on some sort of physical level having to do with your body. Now, I'm going to get into the real juicy stuff, and if you're very sensitive or faint of heart, then you probably shouldn't be watching this. But like I said, the fight scene with the old vice principal and Cyanide was a good fight scene, but that's not what I'm here for. Now Henderson, it's the character who I said was actually going to be called he was a reflection of a real world person, of Frank Napier. This is like the exchange between Jefferson and Frank Napier while he's in his house talking about what the board wants to do for the school. And then, of course, Frank Napier said, "Hey, don't describe me like that. You make it seem like I'm a house nigga." Now, for those of you, obviously, who saw this episode, and, I guarantee you there's going to be some sort of issues with the language and stuff like that for people who don't really understand the importance of phrases like this. And like I said, this is a part of the whole Black Lightning series, because the whole point of it, and even its original comics, were to touch on racial related things having to going on in this whole DC universe. But so let's get into the breakdowns. Now, even Jefferson was saying to the board that a lot of these security features that they want to put into the school, they seem to always have money for, but they don't necessarily have money for the teachers or books or other resources that the teachers may need. And in a lot of instances, in a lot of cases, even in real life, this is a very real problem. A lot of teachers actually have come together to kind of let the city and, like I said, the government know that teachers are spending their own money for resources that the school should be providing, but somehow they always have money for metal detectors or things that make kids feel like they're more in prison rather than in learning environments. So these are real issues that are going on, and like I said, comic books were very reflective of these issues, thus the reason why Black Lightning and these shows also kind of touch upon certain issues as well, more so Black Lightning than anything else. Now, like I said, this whole second season is going to be on the foundation of consequences, and we see Anissa is actually stealing money from drug dealers to give to the church. And I know she's going to eventually give money out to other people, which, like I said, in itself is not a bad thing. She had good intent. But here's the problem. That money is going to come up missing, and then they're going to look for it, and they're going to want to know where that money went. And eventually information will reach out that yes, that money made its way to the church and whoever else she decides to give that money to, which means she herself is going to have to deal with the consequences of her actions and her being impulsive
And we're pretty much going to see that probably in like episode 4, maybe even 3, where that money is going to be found. And then of course you got Henderson discovering Black Lightning's identity. I don't remember that happening in the comics, at least not to my knowledge. Like I said, I haven't read them in a little bit, but Henderson discovering his identity, I felt like him being upset was a little bit of, a little bit of a reach, because, anyone who's a cop, some things you just can't say because of the nature of what they do, and I felt like he of all people should have understood that, but whatever. And then this episode also, on the news, like I said, they talked a lot, very much about the treatment of African Americans throughout historical history. Well, historical events. I can't say historical history because it's kind of redundant, but throughout historical events there has been experiments on black people. That includes like the Tuskegee experiments that took place on black folks way back in the day, and that was a very real thing. That's not like an urban legend or something like that. Many experiments were used on people of color to kind of do whatever that they felt that they needed to achieve. So that episode did touch upon that on several occasions, actually, especially because green light is a side effect, or kind of a consequence, so to speak, of the government experimenting on people of color to make them a little bit more docile. And then we have Jefferson discovering his vice principal was actually the spotter for the ASA. So that's one thing we're gonna have to deal with. Like I said, a lot of this has to do with consequences from the first season. So whatever you saw in season 1, we're basically getting a part 2. We're going to see, all right, this is what happened in season 1. Now what's going to happen in response to what was going on? Like, this is the actions, or this is the effect of what's going on. People are dealing with the side effects of what happened in season 1. Well, we might get a couple new villains, and we're going to get a couple new characters, but they're going to have to deal with a lot of the issues that are taking place, or have taken place in the first season. So that's really what the main enemy is, the consequences. And even in the church, when Anissa first dropped the money, well, right before she dropped off all that bag of money or whatever like that, the preacher was actually talking about that, where manifestation of consequences, where every action has a consequence. There's always going to be a consequence, good or bad. Whatever you decide to do, there's going to be consequences to your action, and we all, as human beings, or even the government or whatever, we are going to have to deal with it. But like I said, this is like a little breakdown, little discussion breakdown, whatever like that. Any question about anything that I've said, leave it in the comments down below. And if you're new to the channel, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe, and leave a comment down below, and I hope to see you later on. Peace out.